To kind of come into our final topic, which is going to be a bit of a doozy on the topic of recasting, I think it goes without saying, and it may have already been said, we will not be covering the Harry Potter show on this channel, nor will we be keeping.
I'm finding out now.
How long have you had that pretend shocked joke in the chamber?
45 seconds.
I love you. But we will not be covering the Harry Potter show, nor will we be covering the news around it in any real way. That said, I want to make a quick exception to talk about something that I've been thinking about a lot. I think the fandom culture, or the fandom culture war, is about to experience a fucking singularity. Like, I think we are on the event horizon of the grifter sphere exploding, not necessarily for the better, but for a lot of people to kind of get their brains turned into mush in a way hitherto unknown since The Last Jedi.
I almost made a joke about a very real military operation that happened yesterday because that's the first thing that came to mind.
Lord. And if I can explain what I mean by that, and if I may do a little bit of Pepe Sylvia for a minute.
Yes.
I've said before that the MCU fandom did to itself in a year what it took Star Wars fans to do in 10. And when I say that, what I'm referring to is doing a revisionist history so profound and detached from reality that it convinced itself that a golden age of that fandom and that franchise existed that never did. And that 10-year gap for Star Wars fans, for the most part, was between the original theatrical run of the original trilogy and the special editions. And this revisionist idea that George was never fucking with the movies, when a week after Star Wars came out, it got the subtitle A New Hope. And that there were like, what was it, 2 or 3 other prints of the movie in circulation. Now, granted, those different versions of the movie were different sound mixed versions, pretty minimal. Doesn't change the text of what's on screen. It's nothing as, egregiously changed as who shoots first in Shalman's Cantina, or the deleted scene with Jabba the Hutt, or anything like that. But George was still changing that movie.
He's always had his fingers in the pie.
He's always had his fingers in the pie. And then we get to the prequels. And then it's, Star Wars was never this goofy and this silly. Well, there's the Ewoks and 3PO and a lot of the shit in Jabba's palace. And Yoda's kind of insane and ridiculous. But fine, whatever. Then we get to the sequels. And then it's, it's political, it's woke. And what they mean is there's women and black people. But, it's political, it's woke, it's all these things. And, this isn't Luke's character. It's just this continuous thing of like, we're looking back on it and we think it's different than it was, but it isn't, because we're not experiencing it as a child.
Mm-hmm.
And the MCU fans did that. It's not, the MCU doesn't have a plan anymore. Well, the whole Infinity Saga thing was kind of a late stage addition. We were always building to Thanos, but, there was a lot of shit that seemed kind of on the fly during the Infinity Saga. You know, oh, it's woke and political, and like whether or not its politics are good, you can't really look me in the eyes and tell me that Iron Man isn't a deeply political movie. Or all the movies about Captain America fighting and killing Nazis. Can't really tell me that's not political,
Mhm.
And what I think is about to happen is a much worse version of what happened to the Star Wars fandom in the 20 teens to Harry Potter and the Wizarding World. And the reason I think that's going to happen, the reason I'm concerned about it, is because I see a very stark similarity between Star Wars and Harry Potter in terms of fandom. There is a term for people who are politically active, let me rephrase that, who vote.
Politically activated.
Politically activated, but are not watching the news, keeping up with politics. Their media diet is not them listening to podcasts about current events. The political ads that find them where they are. They're not seeking it out. They're not necessarily watching debates. They'll see clips online. But like their media diet is mostly not the news and politics. And they're called low information voters. I dropped my pencil and now I'll never be able to think again. Hold on.
You need something to gesture with.
I need something to gesture with. Star Wars and Harry Potter have a lot of low information fans. And when I say that, I don't mean that as a pejorative. I know it sounds like an insult, but it isn't. What I mean by that
I'm using that from now on, by the way.
The low information fans.
Yeah. For everything.
And I think you know where I'm going with it.
Oh, yeah.
There is, I think, a pretty staggering number of fans of both Star Wars and Harry Potter, especially back in the 20 teens for Star Wars, where you have a lot of people who love these fucking movies, but have never picked up a book or a comic or only played a couple games. But they love Star Wars and they want to know more about it. So then they go to YouTube and they go to the internet and they learn about all of these ideas and these events within the canonicity and all of these concepts without experiencing the story directly. And they have a lot of second or often third-hand knowledge about these fandoms and franchises. So you develop this group of people who have never experienced the media and therefore do not have a nuanced opinion about it. All they know is kind of like a kid using AI to study for a history exam. I know this battle happened on this date, and these were the commanding officers of it between these two armies, and it happened here, and this is how it ended. They know of the existence of a thing. They do not understand what it is about. And again, that is not a condemnation.
We all have things that we are this way about.
We all have things that we're this way about. I joke about me being this weird closeted Five Nights at Freddy's fans. Like, I've never played a single one of those fucking games. I'm not saying this is a bad thing. A lot of people who get deeply invested and fall madly in love with these fandoms start as a low information fan. That is not a bad thing. That is not a slur. But a lot of those people allow the YouTubers and the commentators to define their knowledge therein. And again, those YouTubers aren't all bad. We here in the Star Wars fandom, we have this rogues gallery of grifters and illiterates who have destroyed the fucking fandom because of this phenomenon. But then there's always people like fucking Alex Damon and Molly Damon. Star Wars Explained is a net positive, a stark net positive. for the Star Wars fandom, especially as with time, Alex and Molly have basically gone, we've told everybody there is to know about the dates, places, and locations, and have focused so much more on theme and ideas in the recent years. And I love them for that. I'm so glad that they aren't just kind of like, bottom of the barrel, the secret origins of Grand Admiral Thrawn's Star Destroyer's parking brake, none of that. Again, not to say that's explicitly a bad thing, but you have all these fans who have never played Knights of the Old Republic, who never read the New Jedi Order, who never read the Darth Bane trilogy, who know the things that happen. So they are then empowered to imagine how they happened. They know they happened, they don't know how. So they have the ability to go, the prompt is a force-resistant extragalactic threat invades the galaxy and nearly destroys it, and the Jedi have to fight them back. You can create a version of how that happens in your mind that's fucking awesome. With scant details. You know what happened, you know the major events, but you didn't read it. You don't know what it's about. You don't know the themes. You don't know what the story's trying to tell you. But you know what happened. And now that you're older, I'm going to stay on the Star Wars example here for a minute. Now that you're older and these new movies are coming out and you know so much about Star Wars legends, that when these new movies come out, you have this weird moment where you go, this isn't how it used to feel. It feels different. And you don't know what to do with that. And then you start reading more about legends. It's like, oh, this sounds so much better than what we have now. And the people who go, oh, this sounds so much better, are easy marks for the people who go, the reason why it doesn't feel like it used to is because the person with a lightsaber is a girl. Because this character is this character is that. Oh, it's woke, it's feminism, it's whatever. So then you have a cohort of the low information fan. You basically, at this point, you have like two groups of low information fans who don't like the new stuff that kind of just blindly but honestly go, it doesn't feel the way it did when I was little. It doesn't feel the way I thought it should, and I don't like it because of that. And then the other people who can't find a reason, who can't find a reason they dislike it, but for whatever reason, there's plenty, are very easily seduced with disinformation about those stories that they think they know so much about, and are easily convinced of it's bad because it's quote unquote political now, or of all the other fandom menace talking points. All of that to say, I think the Harry Potter show is going to have this problem. I think there are going to be a lot of low information Harry Potter fans who watched the movies all the time as a kid. Maybe they read the books when they were little. But all of the extra ancillary material, Super Carlin Brothers and how many other YouTubers who focus on Harry Potter could just tell them everything that they don't know. And those fans go into this new show and go, oh, this doesn't feel like it did. It doesn't feel like it did when I read it as a kid. It doesn't feel like it did when I saw these movies for the first time, or when I rewatched them around the holidays on Freeform or whatever. And then those low information fans will find the now infinitely more powerful, with more clout, fandom menace people to then start doing the same thing. Well, the reason you don't like it is because Hermione is of color. The reason you don't like it is because Snape is a black man. Which, pause for a moment. Who the fuck let that happen?
Do we want to have that discussion?
No.
Because we know why it happened.
Why do you think it happened?
Oh, okay. So for Hermione specifically,
Hermione, that was JK Rowling's like weird retconning and whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Hermione. Hermione, fine. the character whose whole arc is trying to be like a
Oh, I lost you for a minute. I can't hear you. You rant?
yeah, so my like Zoom opened randomly and decided it wanted my microphone more than StreamYard did. No, what I was saying was I don't mind the Hermione reek. I don't mind. Obviously, I don't mind because I'm not a fucking weirdo. I don't
Yeah.
mind being cast as a person of color. I know it's in line with JK Rowling's like retcon that she always envisioned Hermione as a black as a black kid. Whatever.
Yeah.
You know, everybody did, you know, disappearo shitto at Hogwarts when they didn't have toilets. Fine. My issue is the character whose whole story and arc is being a rehabilitated magical neo-Nazi, and the way that the Death Eaters and Voldemort's whole cult of personality is built on the back of magical racial purity and casting a black man in that role. I think the optics of that are fucking bananas. You know,
I will. Yeah.
give me 1 second. People always bring up the whole like, oh, like this character can be played by a black guy and this person can be played by a Latino person, but like, oh, you wouldn't let Black Panther be played by a white guy. There are characters in fiction who are white who should probably stay white for good reason. I think Steve Rogers thematically works better as a white man because his whole story is being this bundled up, like basically being what would happen if American exceptionalism was a person but had a fucking conscience.
And like on the Captain America, like Steve, you can't reasonably tell the story of Steve Rogers in 1940 getting a super soldier shot and then being treated like an actual American hero
Yeah.
if he's black. Like you can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have it be faithful to any, like obviously like comic books aren't going to be, I shouldn't say that. Comic books are wonderful and they are very powerful pieces of art that tell very like real political things for left leaning movements. But like you can't, Isaiah Bradley exists now in the MCU for a reason, you know?
Underutilized as he may be, he's still there.
Yeah. And that's kind of the, you could even say that's the point.
Maybe, but like someone like Severus Snape, in my opinion, and I'm willing to say that I may not have the correct opinion or that my opinion may not be as informed as somebody else's, but Severus Snape is a character. I think you get into really weird, murky territory with the story you're trying to tell if that character is black. When the whole point of the Death Eaters as a movement and like what Snape is meant to represent is this movement of racial purity.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody who is so ingrained in that movement, to cast a person of color, that is a buck wild decision that I think is kind of inappropriate. And I can admit that I can say that if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and I'll hold that L. But I don't think I am.
I don't think you're wrong. I think the reason I don't think it's happening. So two things. One, I see because I see where you're coming from. I see these low information fans are gonna find the now already practiced grifters on this new thing, targeting a small. Also, for these children's lives are ruined. In every direction.
Let me say that right fucking now too.
Yeah, these poor children.
These kids do not the two guys you're listening to talk right now. Like these are two people who hate that this show exists. Anybody who with allyship and a resentment of JK Rowling's hatred in their heart, do not come sideways at these fucking kids. Do not come sideways at these fucking kids. They're already going to have to deal with it enough from people who are just as bigoted as Joanne. These kids do not deserve your fucking smoke.
Yeah, they cannot make the informed decision to. If you're a young British kid, imagine being a 12-year-old British kid and being told you're going to get to be in fucking Doctor Who,
Yes.
right? Which, by the way, I don't know if you saw what's happening recently, but like, what the fuck is going on with Doctor Who? But
Well, I have
anyway,
no fucking clue. I actually told Taylor right before I saw the news about that regeneration. I was like, I got some time on my hands. I think I'm going to get back into Doctor Who. And I saw that and I'm like, I'm still going to get back into Doctor Who, but I'm so confused.
I didn't see news about it. I saw the clip
Same.
and went and like out loud went, "What in the hell?" Yeah, I've seen my TikTok has been a tale of two Doctor Who's. It's just been, this is the worst decision ever made in any media franchise ever, and oh my god, I'm so happy. This is so cool, and like I have no way to make an opinion on it, and I don't care that much.
Yeah, like I said, I have questions, but I'm willing to let them cook.
Yeah. Anyway, these kids' lives are ruined. The step further, they're not going to. They are going to find those grifters. They're going to find JK Rowling. Right? That's truthfully, that's the biggest issue. Harry Potter has had what I would describe as maybe the worst ability to understand its own ideas and themes. As someone who wanted a dark mark tattoo and is willing to say that into a camera, like, I was 17 once and just thought, like, I really liked Harry Potter and thought the mark was cool and was not nearly as media literate as I am now. Part of the reason is that Harry Potter is not literate in its own themes. Like, as a person who did not pick up that Cho Chang and Kingsley Shacklebolt because of the way I am and where I come from, like, I'm willing to admit I was an ignorant 15-year-old.
Yeah. Cho Chang is more egregious. I can see some people hearing the name Kingsley Shacklebolt and go, that name sounds hard as fuck.
Yeah.
And then it's like an African guy, and you're like, that's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
There's a reason why if JK Rowling named a character of this lineage joke, like,
yeah. And that's my point.
Cho Chang's unfucking forgivable.
Yeah.
Kingsley Shacklebolt is also unforgivable, but it's cool enough that if a white guy had that name, it would still be cool as shit.
Yeah. And so, like, Harry Potter fans were always unique. I shouldn't say that blanketly, but like uniquely have kind of ignored a lot of the deeper themes, and like the fact that Snape is a reformed neo-Nazi and the fact that it is we were all so desensitized to the fact that they were just using slurs.
Yeah.
Right. And like these things were supposed to be treated with that reverence, but then they just didn't, and then we didn't get it because it was for kids. And Joanne hadn't been exposed to black mold yet, but also hadn't like really doubled in on what she was doing.
Well, I mean, there's also room for the conversations about how problematic that story is to begin with.
Right. Yeah. And
the stuff that's aged like milk. And again, if JK Rowling didn't end up being this like hateful fucking lunatic, like I would even be able to give the grace of like, you didn't really, people change with the times, and the times they are a changing. And when you know better, you do better. Like in an alternate timeline where JK Rowling doesn't become a lunatic, I think we could collectively give her the same grace that most people give George fucking Lucas.
Yeah.
That like I have less opinions about the Jar Jar of it all because I just watched the Light and Magic season 2. And how like a lot of the critiques of like the racial elements of Jar Jar, Ahmed Best personally was like, no. I made a lot of these decisions. Which like, again, there's room for a lot of conversation. There's room for people to also still be offended by that. But like, I don't feel comfortable going, I still think, even though I love Jar Jar, I still think it's problematic. I don't have that. but like shit like Watto, shit like the Neimoidians, mostly in my third favorite fucking Star Wars movie, that having all these white people do these like weird Japanese accents, and all the weird iconography with Watto being like the hook nose slave owning, money grubby, whatever, like we've given George the grace of he probably wouldn't do it like that in 2025.
Right.
JK Rowling burned so much goodwill that I don't think anybody's willing to have those conversations. We can have conversations about, again, like there are some things that age like milk, but I think you can only take that as far as you can. George Lucas being such like an anti-authoritarian guy, who had the balls to say that the bad guys in my movie during the Cold War are based on the American Empire and that the goddamn teddy bears are the Viet fucking Cong. Like, I think enough people are able to go, oh, you're based just old and white, and give him a little bit of fucking grace.
Right.
JK Rowling burned all of that years ago.
Yeah. And the reason it's funny that she did kind of burn it in an attempt to be inclusive. Like because she had that weird of like, oh, Hermione could have been black, which like, sure, you can say that, and Dumbledore was gay, and they shit themselves all the time. Like, she had this string of like, no, I'm too smart to have had plot holes.
I'm too smart to have had plot holes. I'm too smart to have been problematic. And even with her revisionist history shit.
I'm too smart to have been problematic is like the perfect in quotes. Yeah.
But like even with like the revisionist history stuff, like and like this is kind of like a side thing to like my greater point here, and I'm glad you brought it up, is like even then she falls into weird problematic tropes.
Yes.
Like everything going on with Hermione in the books, it gets a lot weirder when she's black now. That big moment when Draco Malfoy calls her a mudblood, that takes on a whole new context that if that was not your original intent from the jump, then you need to recognize that you're playing with fire, man. And, shit like Dumbledore. Okay, Dumbledore's gay. Cool. Why's it got to be this weird problematic trope of like toxic queer relationships and how they're like incredibly self-destructive and inherently abusive because Dumbledore had a weird Nazi phase of fucking Grindelwald. Like, ugh, shit like that. But you take the low information fans, right? And now they're like, I don't like it because it's not what I know. And then, oh, I don't like it because Snape is black and whatever. And then you get this next fucking level of people who align with JK Rowling politically, who are going to hate the show from jump, who are, leading the charge with this stuff. Geeks and Gamers already has this has a litany of heinous fucking videos. I think it's him that are immediately attacking the cast because of wokeness. And I'm sorry, you don't get to be these prequel fucking apologists. As someone who loves the goddamn prequels, as someone who will die in the name of the Phantom fucking Menace, you do not get to do this shit after Jake Lloyd and Ahmed Best and call those movies masterpieces. Suck my dick backwards. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. And so you have that, and then you'll have the bigots who probably would have hated the show because of woke, who were going to watch it and support it because it's being made as a cash grab for this transphobic lunatic.
Yeah, that is the other thing too, is now they're going to have a weapon of, no, I'm not a bigot. I watched a show with 2 black people in it. And they were main cast.
Yeah, and oh, hey, did you see, like, and we're going to put a scene in where Dumbledore kisses a guy. I can't hate queer people because Dumbledore's gay still.
Yeah.
Like it's and what I'm getting at with like the singularity thing is like you're like the audience is almost primed to be with this show what it took Star Wars to get where it was with the Acolyte. Where it was, again, like the Acolyte is one of the prime examples of low information fans going buck wild. The amount of TikToks, and granted, that sentence in and of itself is its own bag of cats. The amount of like TikToks and posts I've seen online in general of people going, Disney broke canon with the Acolyte because the prophecy of the chosen one, like explaining how Osha and May ruined the chosen one prophecy and how it doesn't make any sense that Osha could bleed the lightsaber crystal, but Anakin didn't while he was slaughtering children. That doesn't make any sense. This show broke canon. Disney Star Wars sucks. So all of those low information fans who don't know anything about the things they were bitching about, the chosen one prophecy does not exist in Legends. Like it exists, like there's a chosen one prophecy. Obviously, it's in the movies, but like we don't know what it is. In canon, we do. In Master and Apprentice by Claudia Gray, it in detail explains what the chosen one prophecy reads. That a child born of no father, conceived by the Force, will appear at a certain point in time and bring balance to the Force. At no point in the events of the Acolyte is that contradicted. But anything to do with a Force-based conception has to be associated with our special with our special kind of fashy white boy. And the crystal. Well, there's some things there. Anakin never directly meditated with the crystal. Osha was making direct skin to crystal contact with it. She was opening herself up to the Force for the first time really in years. And all of those emotions kind of poured out into the crystal that she was making direct contact with. And she kind of unconsciously did it. There's also the boring real world explanation of we haven't invented this concept yet.
Yep.
There's all these things, but we don't pay attention to them because it doesn't meld with the narrative. And that's what I'm getting at with this singularity, where we're going to have people who are going, oh, this broke the lore, this broke the canon, and they're all throwing shit at the wall because they're too cowardly to say Hermione and Snape are black, it's bad. We'll have people who are just blindly dislike the show because it doesn't feel exactly like the movies. There will be people who like the show, and that's all well and good, but then those people who do like the show are going to be getting shouted out online, justifiably or not, kind of justifiably in my opinion, for supporting this shit. And then there's going to be people like you and me and the people we run with who are going to be begging people to stop watching this fucking show. Go to Goodwill and buy the fucking box set if you really want Harry Potter that badly. Stop supporting this monster. Like, do you see what I mean with like the fandom singularity here? Where everything is going to happen at once. I'm sorry, what did you say?
No, literally what you just said. Yeah, like it is like on every axis, the worst version of it will happen. It's like accelerationist theory, man. We're watching things. It's like you said, we're watching what happened with Star Wars. We watched it happen kind of pretty rapidly with the MCU. In general, like the same kind of thing with like, as an example, we watched the MCU happen. We watched a bunch of studios try to redo the MCU. Whether it's goddamn Snyder's movies or the MonsterVerse.
The Dark Universe.
Right? Like all these things kicked up and not immediately petered out. They existed for upwards of maybe a decade. And when I say existed, I mean something was in production somewhere that technically meant it was alive.
Yes.
Right? And now we're watching these things again where we're having these projects, and like you see it, the multiverses, the DC, the Warner Brothers fighter just shut down. any of these films and ideas that are the revival of the Snyderverse, where like it died and then they were like, no, we're bringing it back because we have Dwayne the Rock Johnson producing, and that's a decent chunk of change. And then, oh wait, it sucks.
Oh wait, it sucks.
Yeah, so we're just gonna let that die. And like that's happening faster and faster and faster, right? And so there is a unfortunate like large part of me that is hoping, and we just talked about how we don't want people to be out of work for even like for the sake of these kids and for the say I don't know, like if you're an adult actor signing onto this project, that's entirely different. You made an informed decision. I hope the show falls through.
I
Like,
mean, what I am worried, not necessarily worried about, but like intrigued to see how it plays out, is that Warner Brothers have said that they are investing in this show for this to be a 10-season series.
and that's
That they are investing in this gigantic set for Hogwarts. That the intention is to let these kids grow on screen into, you know, the chosen one, Harry Potter, blah, 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 and for it to all kind of crescendo into what we know it to be. And I'm curious to see what happens. If the show is successful and it has a 10-season run and adapts all of the books and takes all the time it wants to adapt all of them the way they want to, I will be stunned if it makes it all the way. If they don't have to pull an Andor and truncate seasons. What I'm curious about is what happens if it gets canceled. Like season or two come out and the show gets the plug pulled on it. Who claims victory and who claims victim? Because there's room for JK Rowling to go, my show was destroyed by the transgender mob. You know, the woke transgender ideology murdered my show and destroyed these children's lives. Or will it be an acolyte situation? Where you're just going to have all of these huckster, carny pieces of shit, you know, jerking each other off, going, oh, congratulations, guys, we killed another woke. The Harry Potter reboot went the way of the acolyte. You know, that is something that I'm curious to see how it plays out. Because again, I'm in the same position you are. I don't want to root against this show because of the people whose work is on the line. At this point, like the damage is done that these kids have been cast. There's a part of me that's afraid for what this does for them if they want to be actors for the rest of their life, to have the biggest thing on their resume, the first biggest thing on their resume is you were in this gajillion dollar fucking flop. You know, like there's just so much room for fallout here.
Yeah, for me, when I say I want it to I want it to fail, like I want it to burn up in production tomorrow. I don't want it to hit screens, right? Because the realistic scenario was what you just described, where it's going to maybe make it 2 seasons. We all know, especially with Warner Brothers, but in general, when a studio comes out and says we have a plan that spans out longer than maybe 18 months, it's cooked. Like it's not happening. It's not a matter of if or can they pull it off or what's the act like. With Marvel gets the grace now of what's the timeline actually going to look like, right? We had it was that way with Endgame and Infinity War. That like it was Infinity War Part 1 and Part 2 for a couple of years, right?
Yep.
And so and there's an argument to be made that was off the back of Harry Potter Part 1 and Part 2 being so successful, which I don't want to admit. But Marvel gets the grace now because they're too big to fail and have proven that they will persevere through bullshit. Where it's like, well, what happens when? Okay, so our timeline got scuffed because an actor had to go. What do we do? Okay, we can pivot. We have plans. RDJ will come back and play our gotcha villain, whatever. These other projects think they can do the same thing and they can't because they don't have the buying power that Marvel has, obviously. Like, say what you want about the MCU and recent projects or whatever else, they've earned that.
Yeah.
So that, like, it's not a matter of if this show fails, it's when this show fails, and most likely it'll be after 2 seasons. Unless, like, and this is also all kind of on Rowling as well. Because as Joanne gets more and more unhinged and more like legitimately active with her money, which we're seeing now. I mean, we've been seeing it, but like, I think she knows that the grift is where the money is, or the black mold's really getting to her.
Like I said, the cast being more diverse than I anticipated, like, shocks me that she did not go full grift. Like, not that there's anything redeemable there, but like, again, like Black Snape.
Yeah, and for
I
me,
was like, that is an insane choice considering everything else.
That's emblematic of her. Like, it's not just being a grift, but her actually being fully insane.
Yeah.
Right. Because it's the variance of not just, well, I'm going to lead into the right wing propaganda and make my bag and go home. Right. It's the narcissism of, no, I was right the whole time. I'm actually an unproblematic princess because I'm defending women or whatever. And like, it's her proving herself right by making a thing that that is going to be successful based on things she's said.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like you said, I will, be interested and unfortunately very saddened by whatever happens to watch this show crumble when it crumbles. I genuinely am shocked they're not having more issues. I shouldn't say that, but because it's not that shocking, but not just in terms of actors, but like production staff.
Yeah.
That, like, how many people are doing this job for this show from I don't know how far they obviously aren't far on production yet. And obviously, like, the corporate side of it doesn't matter. And these actors have clearly made, not the kids, but everyone else has made their choice. But like, how many people on the production aspect that are needed to make the show happen are not going to work on this show because of everything that it entails?
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, like I said, I am curious to see how this shakes out. I think that this is going to, I think this is going to somehow be worse than the Acolyte
mm-hmm.
in
the
terms
only
of what it's going to do to discourse and how
the
it will
only
affect.
saving grace, like, truly, is that Harry Potter is not as wide reaching as Star Wars. It's close, and I'm not going
It's
to pretend like
close.
it's not. I think we're so far down the pipeline of the Harry Potter kind of erasure that we've been cascading down, right? Like, the dam broke on, well, actually, her writing was kind of dog shit all along, and I love it so much. I love it. I love hearing.
I
I
have mixed
know,
opinions about that. Where I don't like the revision. Like, again, like, revisionist history is revisionist history, and
right?
that is like, and like the part of my brain that is so invested in like disinformation is a cancer on society. Like,
Yeah,
gets frustrated with that.
that's
I
fair.
think it's possible. And granted, I say that, Travis, what's one of my favorite ways to describe myself? Recovering Kanye stan, where like I can sit here and say that Graduation, My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, Yeezus, and Life of Pablo are, in my opinion, some of the greatest albums, fuck a rap albums of all time. And I think he is a repulsive, disgusting, disingenuous, attention-seeking fucking hate monger. And I can't revisit his music. I can't just go, oh, separate the art from the artist and listen to his old stuff before he was singing about how much he likes Mustache Man. I'll use algo speak because I'm already so in the fucking weeds right now. I'll listen to the old stuff back before he was awful. I can't do that. I'll have my hands full and perfect example, Devil in a New Dress, which in my opinion is one of the greatest songs ever made. It is on my favorite Kanye album, and he's barely on it, which is hilarious. It's mostly a Rick Ross song, but Kanye built that sample and that instrumental from the ground up, and it sounds heavenly. It is one of the most beautiful sounding pieces of music I've ever heard in my entire life and ever will hear in my entire life. That song came on its own on a playlist while I was washing dishes. My hands were wet, and I was like, I'll let it go. And I got to the part where the song just crescendos and explodes into this just sonic feast. And I had this moment where I went, man, he's the greatest producer to ever live. And then immediately, all I see is him in a balaclava on the Alex Jones show. All I see are the tweets. And I'm like, oh. And all of that joy that I had for a nanosecond flew out of the window, and I was full of the dread and grief of this artist I love being a fucking monster. I think it is possible to have an honest conversation and talk about Harry Potter being good. I think you can do that. But you then have to recognize that supporting it now
is bad.
Is bad. Objectively bad.
Yes. I think it is for me, I think on a personal level. I went as Harry Potter for Halloween 3 years in a row as a kid. And part of my love for the movies was that I looked a bit like him.
Yeah.
Can't deny that. Right? That part of me as an adult with, again, much better media literacy and appreciation for storytelling now, looking back on those books and understanding stands her monstrosity of personality that she is. Oh, hey, the society that openly uses slurs against people, both non-magic people and magic people, the resolution of Mustache Man coming back to life and wreaking havoc on a high school. Not touching that, but the the resolution of, hey, the routines and dogmas that are ingrained in our world are deeply wrong and harmful and shouldn't be that way, is for the main character, the main inspiration to change those things, not changing them and becoming a cop. Right? And so it's I can look at that and go, oh, wait, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
That's not how that story should end. Or at least to me, that's not how that story should end. I'm sure for some people that was a perfect ending, and it still is. And those people don't listen to this show. That's for sure. It gives me, knowing now how I feel about those things and how those feelings of...
I don't know why that got me so good. Those people don't listen to this show.
You're like, oh, he turns into a cop at the end. That's cool. No, you're not here. That's not you, bud.
Yeah. I mean, there's, again, the part of my brain that wants to go, there's a part of my brain that activates a instinctive want to fight that take, just because I also hate when people call Jedi cops.
Right. Yeah.
But continue, because I always interpreted the Aurors as Rowling's answer to the Jedi. But you're right. That's just the part of my brain that is defensive of the Jedi Order.
Yeah, it's the thing of from what we've seen and how the story is set up to be ending, that nothing actually changes systemically within the system. And nothing was ever wrong in the first place. It was just this one person. And that's not how evil works. That's not how systemic problems work. And again, Harry Potter is not literate in its own themes and ideas. And so, like, that's why I like when the dam was broken, because it was for me a moment of realizing how much more literate I had become.
Yeah.
And also I got to dog on a transphobe. So, like, fun.
No, for sure. And like that, and like this is like low key becoming like our like a little like group therapy about being heartbroken and disappointed by Harry Potter as an institution.
Yeah, I mean, it is quickly becoming the Chick-fil-A of properties, you know?
Yeah.
I wouldn't
No,
say quickly. I think it's kind of past Chick-fil-A at this point. But
I mean, listen, if somebody else is going to taint their hands by ordering Chick-fil-A, you know, I'm like, yeah, you already decided you were going to go. I'll have a chicken sandwich and I'll feel bad about it. And then I'll like immediately go donate to Glad because I feel guilty. By the time I'm not even done with my sandwich and I donate to Glad. This
it's
said
like
by a queer person myself, I'm like, oh, I got to donate to Glad. This is fucked up.
I have the Trevor Project on speed dial just in case, you know?
Yeah. With Rowling, you know, and like, you know, not that we're litigating this part, you know, but I think the other issue that is just so endemic of this whole situation is that we need to understand, like, I think there was a time where you could do the separate the art from the artist. And I think that there are instances where that is capable. You know, I think, again, I think that's a mileage may vary thing. You know, in the case of living monsters, it's really difficult. Again, there are some people who can watch these movies, like the Chick-fil-A example. There was one time, you know, I hate fucking Harry Potter. My whole family was on a fucking like family trip not too long ago. We were at the hotel, you know, kind of like, you know, recharging a little bit before we went to the next thing. There was nothing on TV. And we went into the room that my mom, dad, and my little sister were in, and they had Chamber of Secrets on E in the background. You know, I'm not judging for that. To me, that is the same as like the Chick-fil-A sandwich that somebody already ordered. You know, but actively putting money in JK Rowling's pocket after she has explicitly said on the record, every dime I make is an affirmation that what I believe is correct. I can't.
Mm-hmm.
I was already having a hard enough time having fun with Harry Potter before that. You know, when it was still, you know, people doing with JK Rowling what people did with Kanye at first. You know, I remember after there's a lot of things that I love about Hitler went viral buku crazy nuts on Twitter that everybody was like, did you guys know that Kendrick Lamar made My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy? Did you know that JPEG Mafia made Yeezus?
Yeah.
You know, did you know, like, in the same way where it was like, did you know Daniel Radcliffe wrote Harry Potter? Did you know that Harry Potter just kind of fell out of the sky one day? And like, and that was, and there was a point in time where like, I understand that feeling acceptable. That line has been crossed so fundamentally at this point that it is untouchable to me. And
Yeah.
I wish it was to more people, but yeah. The fandom culture war singularity, folks. It's about to get real bad. Real
Between that and